Rio de Janeiro, March 17, 1989. A Friday that began like any other in the Tijuca neighborhood, in the north of the city. The couple Roberto Alves Mendonça, 42 years old, and Marcia Regina Santos, 38 years old, left their apartment on Rua Conde de Bonfim around 7:30 in the morning. Roberto, a chemical engineer, worked at a multinational pharmaceutical company located in the city center. Marcia, a biochemist, was a researcher in a private laboratory in the same business complex where her husband worked. That morning, the sky was partly cloudy, with a mild temperature of 204 degrees Celsius, typical of the approaching Rio autumn. The couple, married for 15 years, had no children but were very close to their family. Roberto was known for his punctuality and professional rigor, while Marcia stood out for her dedication to researching new medicinal compounds. According to records from the concierge of the building where they lived, Roberto and Marcia left the building together, as usual, in his car, a gray Monza, model 1988. Security cameras at a gas station on Avenida Americana recorded the vehicle filling up at 7:45. This was the last confirmed image of the couple alive. At 6:30 p.m. that same day, Clarice Santos, Marcia's sister, tried to contact her by phone, as she did every Friday to arrange a traditional Sunday lunch with the family. With no response, after several attempts, Clarice decided to go to the couple's apartment the next morning. Upon arriving, he found everything in perfect order, with no signs that Roberto and Marcia had returned from work. The beds were made, the breakfast dishes washed and put away. Worried, Clarice went to the company where they both worked. The information he received from the security guards was disconcerting. Neither Roberto nor Marcia had shown up for work that Friday. The gray Monza was not in the company parking lot. The time clock didn't register either of them coming in. On Sunday, March 19th, after 48 hours without news, the family formalized the disappearance at the 19th police station in Tijuca. Police Chief Paulo Mendez took on the case personally, impressed by the couple's profile. Both are established professionals with no history of financial problems, no known enemies, no record of depression, or other psychological disorders. The first searches focus on the main access roads between Tijuca and the city center, a route the couple took daily. Hospitals were consulted, work contacts interviewed, bank accounts checked. There were no recent withdrawals or suspicious movements. The couple's passports were at home, in the bedroom dresser drawer, their suitcases intact in the closet. The last person to see the couple was doorman Sebastio Oliveira, who reported not having noticed anything unusual in their behavior that morning. They left normally, like any other workday. Mr. Roberto even commented on the forecast for rain later in the day. He testified. A week after their disappearance, the couple's car was found in the parking lot of a shopping center in Botafogo, in the city's South Zone. The vehicle was locked with no signs of violence, and the tank was almost empty. There were no fingerprints other than the couple's, which initially ruled out robbery followed by kidnapping. If you want to follow more cases like this, which shake up society as a whole and reveal hidden truths, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any investigation. The first weeks after Roberto and Marcia's disappearance were marked by intense police mobilization. The case gained prominence in local and national media, with daily reports and appeals for information. The family offered a reward of 1,000 crits, the currency of the time, to anyone with concrete clues as to the couple's whereabouts. In April 1989, the first promising line of investigation emerged. A gas station attendant where the couple had refueled reported seeing the Monza being followed by a black Opala was seen leaving the establishment. This information led investigators to review all security cameras along the route. At an intersection on San Francisco Xavier Street, they were able to partially identify the Opala's license plate RJ47X. With this information, the police reached Jose Cardoso, a former security guard at the pharmaceutical company where Roberto worked, having been fired 3 months earlier on suspicion of drug theft. The Opala, however, had a verifiable alibi. It had been in a mechanic's shop since March 15th, suffering from engine problems. The trail went cold. Meanwhile, investigators delved deeper into the couple's professional lives. Roberto had recently participated in a tense meeting with executives from the pharmaceutical company's American headquarters. According to colleagues, he had expressed concerns about ethical procedures in testing a new drug. Marcia, for her part, kept coded notes in a notebook found in her drawer in the laboratory. In May 1989, an anonymous witness contacted the police, claiming to have seen the couple boarding an official car, possibly belonging to a government agency, near Sands Penna Square. The information was vague, and the witness never appeared to formally testify. Chief Inspector Paulo Mendez pursued a different line, the possibility that the couple had discovered something compromising at the company where they worked. Documents seized from the apartment included technical reports on undisclosed side effects of a newly launched drug. The company, when questioned, denied any wrongdoing and partially cooperated with the investigation, providing only selected information. We are dealing with an extremely complex case. There are no clear signs of foul play, but there are also no indications that the couple disappeared voluntarily. The chief of police declared at a press conference 3 months after the disappearance. By August 1989, the search had already slowed considerably. The case began to cool. A new lead emerged when a fisherman found a woman's bag in Guanabara Bay, identified as Marcia's. Inside were only personal documents and a lipstick. There were no signs that the bag had been in the water for a long time, which raised suspicions of planted evidence to mislead the investigation. In late 1989, with the change in after the police station's leadership, the case was placed on the back burner. The family continued pressing for answers, hiring private investigators, and keeping the case alive in the press. But the years passed without significant progress. In 1994, 5 years after the disappearance, a review of the case uncovered an overlooked detail. In the weeks before his disappearance, Roberto had made 4 calls to the Ministry of Health, specifically to a health inspection department. The records of these calls were never examined in depth during the initial investigation. Around 1996, the pharmaceutical company where the couple worked was acquired by a larger conglomerate and underwent a complete restructuring. The building housing the laboratories was sold and later demolished to make way for a business center. The new management claimed to have no records or documents from the previous administration relating to the missing couple. As time passed, the mystery only deepened. Conspiracy theories began to emerge, ranging from alien abduction to planned escapes under new identities. The family, however, never believed in the possibility of voluntary abandonment. We knew Roberto and Marcia. They would never leave their elderly parents without news. There was something very wrong with this story, Clarice stated in a TV documentary produced in 1999, marking the 10th anniversary of the disappearance. The Mendonça Santos case, as it became known, remained dormant for years, occasionally mentioned in special reports on unsolved mysteries in Brazil. In 2007, with the advancement of forensic technology and digitized databases, the case was reopened by the Homicide Department of the Rio de Janeiro Civil Police. Chief Renato Souza, a specialist in cold cases, took over the reinvestigation with a new approach, following the money and the data. By analyzing the couple's financial records with more modern tools, he discovered an unusual pattern. 3 months before the disappearance, Roberto had withdrawn small amounts from areas, accumulating approximately the equivalent of 50,000 Brazilian reals in updated values. These withdrawals were not clearly visible on the original statements due to a bank system error, discovered only with the new analysis. In parallel, in 2010, Claudio Mendonça, Roberto's nephew who pursued a career in the pharmaceutical industry, found a scientific article published in 1988 in which his uncle was cited as a collaborator in research on cryogenics applied to the preservation of organic tissue. The article mentioned an experimental project developed underground in the industrial complex where the couple worked. This revelation coincided with another discovery. The building that housed the former pharmaceutical company, although officially demolished in 1997, had actually preserved a sealed underground structure during the area's urban renewal. The records of construction company responsible for the demolition indicated that the technical area was preserved by federal order with restricted access. In June 2014, severe flooding hit downtown Rio de Janeiro, causing the partial collapse of a parking lot built over the former pharmaceutical site. During containment and repair work, workers found a sealed steel door not included in the current site plans. Civil Defense, upon inspecting the area, came across a flight of stairs leading to an unmapped underground complex. Authorities were called when technicians found an armored door with security systems from the 1980s, still operational, powered by an independent generator. Leave a comment. Never give up on the truth if you believe that all missing people deserve to be found. Chief Inspector Renato Souza, still responsible for the missing couples case, was immediately notified. With judicial authorization, a specialized team managed to open the sealed complex after 3 days of technical work. What they found inside shocked even the most experienced investigators. A complete laboratory, preserved like a time capsule, contained sophisticated equipment for the time, technical documentation, and most disturbingly, a large cryogenic chamber, still operational thanks to an autonomous power system. Inside the chamber, 2 frozen bodies lay side by side, later identified as Roberto Alves Mendonça and Marcia Regina Santos. Both wore lab coats with the pharmaceutical company logo and restricted access badges. Preliminary analysis indicated that the bodies had undergone an experimental cryogenics process, apparently voluntary. There were no signs of violence or struggle or force restraint. Toxicology tests, however, revealed the presence of a powerful sedative in both of their systems. In a safe next to the cryogenic chamber, investigators found a diary written by Marcia, detailing confidential experiments conducted by the couple. The text revealed that they were both volunteers in a secret human cryogenics research program, partially funded by an unidentified government agency. The last entries, dated March 16, 1989, the day before the disappearance, stated, "Tomorrow we will take the final step. R is apprehensive, but we agree that this is our only chance to prove the viability of the CR7 protocol. The supervisors did not approve the project extension, so we need to demonstrate results. 48 hours in the cryogenic state should be sufficient to validate Phase 3. If it goes wrong, at least we'll be together, as always." Tukikit, the discovery of the frozen bodies of Roberto and Marcia, 35 years after their disappearance, triggered an unprecedented operation in Brazilian investigative system. The case, now under judicial review due to its scientific and ethical implications, has mobilized experts in forensic medicine, cryogenics, law, and bioethics. An autopsy of the bodies, performed by a multidisciplinary team, confirmed that both had died due to systemic failure during the cryogenic process. The system, designed to keep them in a state of suspended animation for 48 hours, suffered failure in the resuscitation mechanism. Instead of shutting down completely, the equipment went into continuous preservation mode, keeping the bodies frozen for 3.5 decades. Records found in the lab revealed an even more disturbing truth. The couple had discovered irregularities in the clinical trials of a new drug developed by the pharmaceutical company. Patients experienced serious side effects that were not officially reported. When they confronted the company's management, Roberto and Marcia were co-opted into a parallel research project on human cryogenics, with the promise that their concerns would be addressed later. Marcia's diary revealed that in the weeks before their disappearance, the couple realized they were being monitored and feared for their safety. They then decided to use the cryogenic project as a way to temporarily disappear, while they gathered enough evidence about the company's wrongdoing. The plan was to freeze them for 48 hours, during which time an automatic system would revive them. Documents found in the safe indicated that a trusted employee should check the process after 60 hours in case the automatic system failed. However, this employee, identified only as Operator J7, never showed up to carry out the verification. Further investigation revealed that the J7 operator was Joaquim Silva, a laboratory technician who died in an alleged car accident 3 days after the couple disappeared. The re-evaluated accident now presented suspicious characteristics that indicated sabotage in the vehicle's braking system. In 2024, 35 years after the disappearance, justice can finally offer closure to the family. The public prosecutor's office filed charges against 3 former executives of the pharmaceutical company, 2 of whom are still alive, for manslaughter and concealment of a corpse. The third, now deceased, had his liability extinguished, The pharmaceutical company, now part of an international conglomerate, issued an official statement lamenting what happened and claiming that current managers were unaware of the events that occurred under the previous administration. He offered compensation to the family, which was initially refused by relatives who demanded full justice before any financial settlement. The impact of the case was broad and multifaceted. In the scientific community, it has rekindled debates about research ethics, the limits of human experimentation, and the oversight of confidential projects. In the justice system, it prompted a review of disappearance investigation protocols, especially when they involve professionals in sensitive fields such as science and technology. For the families of Roberto and Marcia, the outcome brought an end to a cycle of anguish that had certainly lasted more than 3 decades. It's not the ending we expected, but at least now we know the truth. We can finally give them a dignified goodbye, Clarice said today at 73, in an exclusive interview. The couple's bodies were finally buried in a private ceremony 35 years and 124 days after their disappearance. The Mendonça Santos case went down in history as one of the most extraordinary mysteries solved in Brazilian police history, a somber reminder of the risks of unethical science and greed over human life. Today, a memorial dedicated to the couple was erected on the campus of the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, where they both graduated. The simple yet powerful inscription reminds everyone who passes by, Roberto and Marcia. The search for truth froze them in time, but their legacy lives on as a warning to unconscionable science. The years following the discovery of Roberto and Marcia's bodies brought significant changes to Brazilian scientific and judicial landscape. The case became a watershed in the regulation of experimental research involving human beings. In 2025, the National Congress passed the Mendonça Santos Law, establishing strict protocols for research in human cryonics and other fields. Experimental life-saving technologies. The legislation included the creation of an independent ethics oversight committee with veto power over projects deemed risky or ethically questionable. The trial of the former pharmaceutical company executives lasted nearly 2 years, revealing a web of corruption that went beyond the couple's case. Confidential documents preserved in the underground chamber exposed a clinical data tampering scheme that affected several drugs marketed in the 1980s and 1990s. As a result, a task force was created to identify potential victims of unreported side effects. Carlos Eduardo Mendez, the pharmaceutical company's former research director and the main defendant in the case, was sentenced to 23 years in prison for qualified manslaughter, concealment of corpse, document forgery, and conspiracy. In his final statement, he admitted ordering the sealing of the underground laboratory after the cryogenic system failed, but denied direct responsibility for the couple's deaths, claiming they were volunteers aware of the risks. The second executive, Paulo Roberto Vasconcelos, the CFO at the time, received a sentence of 17 years for complicity and money laundering related to the illegal financing of the secret project. The third person involved, Enrique Barros, the company's head of security, had died in 2011, but investigations prove his role in simulating the abandonment of the couple's vehicle at the Botafogo Mall and in the destruction of evidence. In a surprising development in 2026, researchers from the University of Sao Paulo managed to recover and decode data from the computers found in the underground laboratory. The files revealed that the cryogenics project, in which Roberto and Marcia were involved, was part of a larger initiative with international ramifications. At least 3 other research centers around the world were conducting similar experiments during the same period, all funded by the same business group. The couple's family, through the Mendonça Santos Foundation, created in their memory, became an active voice in the defense of scientific ethics and the search for missing persons in Brazil. Using part of the compensation finally accepted after the trial, the foundation funds advanced technologies for locating missing persons and offers legal support to families in similar situations. The location where the bodies with the remains found were transformed into a center for studies on ethics in scientific research, preserving part of the original structure as a memorial. Students of medicine, law, and forensic science regularly visit the space as part of their academic training. In an article published in the journal Science in 2027, the case was described as one of the most extraordinary examples of how the pursuit of scientific advancement, when divorced from fundamental ethical principles, can result in tragedies of unimaginable proportions. The article highlighted how the cryogenic technology used on the Brazilian couple was surprisingly advanced for its time, anticipating developments that only became mainstream in the scientific community decades later. Interestingly, some of Marcia's diary entries contain formulas and procedures that, reanalyzed with current knowledge, demonstrated remarkable scientific insight. Her approach to preserving neural tissue during the cryonics process was incorporated into modern transplant protocols, saving countless lives, an unintended but significant legacy. The cultural impact of the case was also considerable. Several works of art were inspired by the couple's story, including an internationally award-winning miniseries, 2 best-selling novels, and a play that toured Brazil, discussing the boundaries between science, ethics, and love. A BBC documentary produced in 2028, Frozen Truth, the Brazilian cold case, brought the case to global audiences, sparking debate about scientific regulation in several countries. In 2029, on the 40th anniversary of the disappearance, a commemorative plaque was installed in Sans Pena Square, near the couple's last known location before arriving at the laboratory. The ceremony brought together family members, authorities, and students from across the country. The plaque's text, simple and direct, sums up the sentiment the case evokes to this day. Roberto and Marcia, frozen in time while the world moved on. Their search for the truth will never be forgotten. If you watch this far, it's because you care about these cases that mark families forever. Leave a comment saying, "I watched this far so I can get to know you and know who truly cares about the search for truth." Don't forget to like this video and share it with people who value in-depth investigations and true stories that make us reflect. Justice in science. Subscribe to the channel to continue following cases that challenge our understanding and remind us of the importance of never giving up the search for truth, even when it takes decades to emerge from the shadows of the past.